The Bhopal disaster, also referred to as the Bhopal Gas Tragedy, was a gas leak incident in India, considered as the world's worst industrial disaster ever known to mankind. In the early morning hours of December 3, 1984, a poisonous grey cloud from Union Carbide India Limited, a pesticide plant at Bhopal, spread throughout the city. Water carrying catalytic material had entered methyl isocyanate storage tank. What followed was a nightmare. The killer gas spread throughout the city, sending residents scurrying through the dark streets. No alarm ever sounded a warning, and no evacuation plan was prepared. When victims arrived at the hospitals breathless and blind, doctors did not know how to treat them, as UCIL did not provide emergency information. It was only when the sun rose the next morning that the magnitude of devastation was clear. Dead bodies of humans and animals blocked the streets. Leaves turned black. The smell of burning chili pepper lingered in the air. In aftermath of the incident, at least 1 lakh died. The official death count was around 3,000, but the unofficial count was around 10,000 deaths. The Bhopal gas leak caused extensive damage to the environment surrounding the Union Carbide factory. The impact were both immediate and long-term. Due to improper cleaning in the area, Bhopal residents are still affected by the negative consequences of the gas leak. Several factors were identified as the contributor to the disaster: gradual erosion of good and regular maintenance operations, depletion of adequately trained professionals, especially in supervisory posts, declining inventories of vital spare parts, staff exodus and demoralization, undermanning of important workstations in the plant. These factors and the problems mentioned above combined together to create the catastrophe on 5 past midnight on December 2, 1984. In relation with this, it was highly unethical for the worker's immediate supervisor to instruct the worker to continue despite knowing the malfunctions discovered. It was also unethical for the worker to report to the wrong superior. However, he still could not be blamed as there were no proper education courses for response protocol or code of conduct for the workers in the plant. Furthermore, after the disaster breakdown, the director of UCC in UCIL, Warren Anderson, packed up his belongings and moved back to America, denying the breakdown at the factory was related to him or his company. He stated that the breakdown was caused by human errors, which came from the workers at the factory and not the management nor the top personnel. The action of the chairperson of UCC abandoning the tragedy and put the blame on low-class workers is professionally unethical. They took advantage of the illiterate and uneducated workers of the factory to run away from the blame. As a result, the government of India fined the UCC in United States for all the loss of lives. However, most of the safety systems in the plant were not in operating order. Other than the safety measures or standards that were not achieved, another aspect of responsibility of safety would be that the workers were not given proper education on safety procedures, despite the high illiteracy rate of the local citizens in Bhopal and lack of training in handling the industrial equipments and machinery. They were hired to do hard labor because of low labor cost. The tragedy of Bhopal serves as the warning that industrialization in developing countries require strict environmental guidelines and that companies must adhere to these regulations to ensure that their operations are safe for the employees and local residents. It is also a reminder that the economic challenges should not be an excuse for subpar operational standards, especially when the lives of many are at stake. Concluding, the ethical orientation of the government and the Supreme Court towards Bhopal disaster. Government protected themselves under the Article 300 of Indian Constitution. Also, it did not take into account any damages to be paid to the victims due to its ineffective control required under the Factories Act. Also, it didn't take the responsibility in fallacy of letting slum dwellers stay close to factory, apart from permitting it to operate within city limits. Supreme Court, though awarded damages to the victims to be paid by the company, the criminal charges against the company were withdrawn. Also, judgment which it gave in 1996, where they observed the company on basis of no proof of willful negligence, reeks of naivety. Also, it didn't demand accountability of state under strict interpretation of Article 300 in fear of Operation a Pandora's Box. Ethical evaluation of the key roles. Warren Anderson and Union Carbide officials of USA. Profit was the utmost priority. Government interventions, they lost ownership is not a valid reason, as their safety standard is the priority in these kind of manufacturing companies. Union Carbide officials of India. Operating managers and personnel inside the plant, and as the safety mechanisms are already installed, is the responsibility to manage it in a running condition. Indian government. Intention. Increase in crop production, providing job and employment. At least few Americans should have been allowed to operate permanently. Limitation. Scare away international investors due to litigations. Madhya Pradesh government should have made arrangements so that the factory was never set up within the city premises, and local leaders should not get into the operations of the company. Supreme Court ruled not a criminal offense, but willful negligence in case of dangerous chemicals handling should have been tried as criminal offense rather than tort. The relationship between law and ethics. Neither law, ethics are fixed principles. Ethical beliefs led to the development of laws and regulations to prevent certain behaviors or encourage others. Law can change or disappear as ethical beliefs change. Without an ethical delivery, the law becomes a weapon and a tool for deceit and hierarchy toward the very society the law was designed to protect and enhance. Ethical values and legal principles are usually closely related, but ethical obligations typically exceed legal duties. In some cases, the law mandates ethical conducts. Examples of the application of law or policy to ethics include employment law, federal regulation, and codes of ethics. Though law often embodies ethical principles, law and ethics are far from coexistence. The law does not prohibit many acts that would be widely condemned as unethical, and the contrary is true as well. The law also prohibits acts that some groups would perceive as ethical. For example, lying or betraying the confidence of friend is not illegal, but most people would consider it unethical. Yet spreading is illegal, but many people do not have an ethical conflict with exceeding the speed limit. Law is more than simply codifying ethical norms.